Focus on buying these 5 types of assets and you'll become very, very rich. There are 5 main asset classes to know about when you get started investing. The ultimate goal is to own a little bit of each asset class so you have a really strong diversified portfolio. In this video, I'll explain each of these 5 asset classes in detail, and I'll also give you some tips on how you can get started investing in them, even if you don't have a ton of money to invest right now. And before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My channel is all about money and investing for beginners, and I know it's gonna help you learn a ton. So make sure to hit subscribe and hit the notification bell for new videos every week. The first asset class is equity, aka stocks or shares. When you buy equity, you become a co-owner or a shareholder of the issuing company. If the company has 10,000 shares outstanding and you own 1,000 shares, then you own 10% of the company. As an equity investor, you get returns in 2 ways. When the stock price increases, the market value of your equity stake goes up, which you can sell at a profit. So that's the first way you can make money investing in stocks. The second way equity investors make a return is via dividends. Since you're a part owner of a company, you're entitled to a piece of its profits, and you generally receive that in the form of dividends. Dividends are typically paid quarterly, and back in the day, every shareholder would actually receive their quarterly dividend as a paper check in the mail. But nowadays, you'll most likely get an electronic deposit in your account that looks something like this. There's 2 ways to buy stocks. You can either buy stocks via a fund, which are pooled investment vehicles, or you can buy individual stocks. Now, if you want to invest in individual stocks, you should only pick stocks and invest in companies that you're knowledgeable about, and it does take a bit of skill and knowledge to do that. So I talk more about how to assess companies and what factors to consider when picking stocks in this video right here. And if you also want to learn more about funds, then check out this other video right here. So if you want to invest in a fund, then that's going to be really convenient for you because funds package a bunch of stocks into a nice diversified portfolio. This is the best way to earn the average market return and benefit from the wealth building upward trend of the stock market without having to go down the rabbit hole of analyzing individual companies, because let's face it, not everyone wants to do that. I personally love doing that, but it's not for everybody. Before you can invest in stocks, you first need to open a brokerage account. A brokerage account is kind of like a bank account, but it's a place to hold your investments instead of holding cash. So brokerages that you can look into are Fidelity, Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, and Robinhood. The second asset class is debt or bonds. When you buy a bond, you become a lender. So bonds are very different from stocks because unlike equity investors, bondholders don't own anything. You're just lending money to the borrower in return for periodic interest payments, which are typically semi-annual. And then at the end of the loan, you get the original principal amount back. You can invest in either government bonds or corporate bonds. Government bonds are issued by governments in order to fund infrastructure projects, education, and pay for all the other things that governments do. Corporate bonds are issued by firms that need funding for projects and initiatives to grow the company. So you can either buy government bonds or corporate bonds. The number 1 factor to consider when investing in bonds is credit worthiness. As long as the borrower is in good financial shape, you're pretty much guaranteed the interest payments and the return of your principal. But if the borrower goes bankrupt, then you're out of luck. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch are agencies that publish bond ratings to show a borrower's creditworthiness. So this makes it easy for you to do your due diligence before you invest your money in a bond. AAA bonds are about the safest you can get, with basically 0 chance of default. AAA companies have a lot of cash flow compared to their debt payments, so it's a very low risk of default for you as a lender. And the further you go down the ratings table, you'll see bonds offering higher interest rates. Obviously, as a lender, you want to get as high of an interest rate as possible, but the key is to balance that with the risk of not getting your money back. When you see a bond offering really high interest, that's because the borrower is in shaky financial condition and there's a high chance of you not getting your money back. So they have to pay really high interest rates to compensate for this risk. For example, Argentina's government bond is paying around 12%, whereas US Treasuries are paying only around 2%. And go figure, Argentina has defaulted 8 times on its debt throughout its history, whereas the US has never defaulted. So that's kind of how it works. You know, you get what you pay for, and if something's too good to be true, then it it probably is. Hey, and if you're liking this video so far, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Bonds are considered to be safer than stocks because when a borrower goes bankrupt, bondholders are usually first in line to get their money back, whereas stockholders are usually the very last to get paid in a default situation. So you get a lot less upside with bonds than with stocks, but it also comes with less risk. If your goal is to grow your money, then you'd want to invest most of your money in stocks, not in bonds. That's why generally for young people, for basically people my age, around in 20s and 30s, then definitely most of your money should be in stocks. You can invest in bonds using the same brokerage account that you use for stocks. However, the minimum investment is usually $1,000, so unless you have tens of thousands of dollars to invest in bonds, it probably makes more sense for you to invest via bond funds, which are, again, pooled investment vehicles just like stock funds, except they do bonds, and they give you access to a wide range of bonds with no minimum investment. Some example of bond funds you can look up to jumpstart your research is the Fidelity Long-Term Treasury Bond Index Fund, or FNBGX, and iShares Treasury Bond Exchange Traded Fund, or IEF. The third asset class is cash and cash equivalents. So anything that's sitting in your checking or savings account or in your wallet, that's cash. And cash equivalents, also known as the money market, are securities that earn a little bit of interest and can easily be converted to cash. Any form of debt that has a loan term of 1 year or less is considered a cash equivalent. So that's CDs, 1-month treasury bills, 3-month treasury bills, 6-month treasury bills, repurchase agreements, and commercial paper. Have you ever seen those news articles talking about how some companies are sitting on tons of cash? Like Apple, they always have hundreds of billions of dollars of cash on hand. That's obviously not sitting in a bank account somewhere because banks don't pay any interest, and a company like Apple wouldn't do that. So often in the business news, when you hear about companies holding on to cash, they're actually parking it into cash equivalents, like the money market. And that's something you can do too. There's no reason to be sitting on tens of thousands of dollars or even thousands of dollars of cash when it's earning nothing in a bank account. So this is where cash equivalents come in. One way you can invest in cash is by purchasing shares in a money market fund like FDLXX and VMFXX. You could also purchase CDs, otherwise known as certificates of deposit, either through your bank or in your brokerage account. Or you could just find a savings account that earns decent interest and park your money there. I have heard of some savings accounts that pay up to 2%, which isn't too bad. I do want to point out that cash and cash equivalents are not an asset class for long-term investing. Even though they pay a little bit of interest, cash loses its purchasing power over time due to inflation. So it's a very, very bad idea to keep all your money in cash or cash equivalents. It's really just meant to be a place to park your savings, but it's not going to provide you the kind of growth you get from stocks and real estate. Which leads me to the next asset class on the list, real estate. Real estate is property. It can be residential, office, commercial, industrial. There's two ways to make money investing in real estate. Kind of like stocks, when property values go up, you can sell them at a profit. And you can also collect rental income as long as you own the property. Real estate is a lot like stocks in that sense. It gives you a combination of growth and income. And people who like real estate like it because it's something tangible that you can just touch and see. And it's a pretty simple asset class to understand. Paper assets like stocks and bonds are a bit harder to wrap your head around. Another benefit of real estate is that it's the only asset class where banks will lend you money to buy it. You can always get a mortgage to buy a property, but very few banks are going to lend you money to invest in stocks. As long as the cash flow from the property pays the monthly mortgage, you can use less of your own money and still enjoy the benefits of owning the property. This is called leverage, and if used wisely, can generate a high return on your money. So in general, real estate is the only asset class where you can use leverage to juice up your returns. Of course, the catch is that real estate is the most capital intensive of all the asset classes, and buying any piece of real estate is usually going to require tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands. Although a less capital intensive way to invest in real estate is by investing in REITs, or real estate investment trusts. REITs are basically shares of ownership in companies that own huge portfolios of real estate. REITs are basically stocks, and they trade like stocks, and you have to buy them in a brokerage account just like stocks. They generally pay nice dividends, and you'll never have to fix a toilet or deal with property management stuff like if you owned real estate directly. So REITs are also a great way to get started in this asset class. You can also try crowdfunding platforms like Fundrise, Realty Mogul, and CrowdStreet. Investing in real estate crowdfunding deals is a lot like investing in REITs, except that you're investing in private deals versus publicly traded deals. However, both of these options, crowdfunding and REITs, generally come with less control and more fees. So we've covered the 4 main asset classes: stocks, bonds, cash, and real estate. I also wanted to quickly mention some alternative asset classes because there are other ones out there. There's precious metals, so gold, silver, platinum, palladium. There's also fine art, collectibles like fine wine and exotic cars. So these are some other asset classes that generally hold their value against inflation. Some other ones you might have heard about are hedge funds, commodities, and derivatives. These are mostly meant for high net worth investors, and it's generally not recommended for anyone who's just starting out. So I'm not really gonna get into that video here. Stocks, bonds, cash and cash equivalents, and real estate are the basic building blocks of a bulletproof financial portfolio. Most of the growth in your investments are gonna come from stocks and real estate, and you can use bonds and cash for income and stability and to make a small return on your savings. For more beginner-friendly videos about investing, make sure to also check out these 2 videos right here. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button below for new videos every week. Always remember to go after your dreams unapologetically and to live life on your terms. Cheers.